Hello everyone and welcome to the 2014 Rolex Kentucky 3-day event here in Lexington. I'm joined today by Director Grazia and Jim Wofford, and we'll be taking you behind the scenes on a course preview here in Kentucky. First of all, gentlemen, the start box behind us, a lot of feelings happening there come Saturday, and as longtime riders and coaches, walk us through just some of the emotions these riders are going through here as they hear that countdown.
I think by this time you're pretty settled. You still got a lot of butterflies, but by now you got them flying in formation. And you're just glad that you're finally going to be allowed to get out here and do something.
Derek, your thoughts kind of on the start box and getting riders out on that course?
Well, I think that here, because with the way the course starts out, you've got to be ready to go out and start jumping. And so I think that you want to make sure you have a good warm-up, you're getting the horses in a good rhythm, and you're ready to go out and start to jump some pretty big jumps.
Well, this year, World Equestrian Games year, and those selectors will certainly be watching all those riders as they depart from this start box across this whole course here designed by Derek. We're very excited to show you more of the course, and we'll take you on a preview right now. Here at 5 ABC, riders will encounter the Dewberry Water Park, and it will be very important to get this complex right, as it is the first complex they encounter on course. Derek, some keys to success here and really walking us through the options the riders have.
Well, up till now, the riders have really been jumping a lot of big single fences really to get them into the course. Here, what typically happens, and it's the first time really the horses and riders will come into a big crowd of people, and I think that in itself is a little bit overwhelming for some. But I think that the way this hopefully should play out is that they should have a pretty aggressive riding in. They really have to keep their line over the duck and to be able to get the ride up the hill and out. I think it's a very forward ride here, especially riding out, but at the same time the angle on the brush coming out is something that they really have to pay attention to, because otherwise they could have a very easy run by on the brush at the top of the hill.
Well, there are two options jumping in. You'll have to pick one side of that brush at A, then the B is not optional in the duck. And for C, do you think we'll see anybody go around this little obstacle that's been created for them to dictate here?
Yes, I do. I think there'll be a lot of people that go the long way. They don't want to have a silly glance off early in the course. You want to make sure the horse brings his brain with him when he comes out of the start box, because this does come early. Derek's right. The crowd has a big effect. The water has a big effect. You should be able to tell which way the rider's going to go by which angle they take at 5A. If they're going to go the long way, they'll probably jump close to the red flag at 5A and go on a big outside curve, take a few extra seconds, but make sure that they get all of the jumps checked off their list.
And Derek, if things don't go how they'd hoped here, but they're still clean, if the horse is a little bit sticky coming in, or maybe it didn't ride how they envisioned, are there things you do as a rider to try to get things back on course to continue on, because it just keeps coming at you?
Well, I think here after this jump, they do have quite a gallop to the next fence. So I think it gives both the horse and the rider time just to settle in a little bit and just to sort of take a breath and be ready, so that they have a good jump over fence 6, which is a very straightforward oxer, which I think they really want to have a good jump over before they come to the park question there at 7.
Here at the Coffin Complex at 7ABCD, the Bridgestone Park question, there are going to be a lot of questions asked here, Derek. Walk us through first the direct route.
The direct route here is they'll be coming from the oxer, fence 6, and from the oxer there's a pretty straight line to the inn here at 7A. After 7A, I mean, basically you can see straight through that the fences are pretty much right in front of you. However, you have to be in the right type canter coming to 7A. At the same time, you've got to make sure that when you land off of 7A that you're ready to keep moving, because you've got to get over the ditch. You have to be riding quite positive to the first cabin coming out, and then actually to the next one after that. The last one's there. You really do have to make sure you keep your line, because it is on a bit of an angle, and it's going to make you pay attention the whole way through. The long way here is long, And so you have to go all the way around to the other side to actually approach the other 7A, which then will lead you to the B, C, and D, which will take you some time to get around here.
Jimmy, take us through the ideal striding on this complex, the direct route, and what it's going to take to get it done as a rider.
Here's the fast way for me, Frankie. I want the riders to come very tight to the turn after 6 and jump in slightly on the right side. What that does is it gives you a little better angle back to the remaining elements. The horse tends to see them better. These horses jump complexes all the time. This isn't their first coffin combination. But it helps at the 4-star level. And Derek, I think, is very sneaky. He's an evil person because he knows that. And he knows that riders jump in and they stop mentally for a split second and they pat themselves on the back and tell themselves how happy they are to have jumped the 1, and they forget to jump 2, which makes them very wonky at the 3rd element, and then they forget at the 4th element. This is a combination where the rider must ride every step all the way through.
Maintaining your focus, certainly a huge key here. And if they were to take the options here, as we were talking about before, they would have to take that from the beginning.
That's correct. The option here is the long way. Only if they have a refusal after trying the straight way can they take the other options.
Okay, well, in the past, this complex has been slightly different, but we've certainly seen its share of complications here for riders, and we expect things to probably be no different than that this year. Any 4-star course, and certainly any Derek Grazia course, is about how well a rider can make a decision. That will totally determine their success, and this will be no exception at 12AB. Derek, take us through what riders will encounter here on these 2 obstacles.
Well, I think really the thing you have to look at is the setup and what's been going on. And I think that previous to this fence, they've had a long gallop out of the infield, and then they've had 2 very forward galloping fences, especially the last one, which is the big ditch and brush. And so then coming to this fence, those horses are quite open. And so I think the riders really have to make sure that they get themselves prepared for this combination. You've got quite a large jumping in at 12A here, but at the same time, which is going to create a huge amount of movement going down the hill. And they've got to be able to control that movement and then keep the direction over the open corner. And I did say it is an open corner, and so they have to really make sure that they do respect it.
Well, the terrain plays such a big factor here, and this will be true in this case as well, coming down the hill, Jimmy. And for your riders, jumping over this table, like Derek said, you're going to have some pace to you. So how do you kind of settle your horse back down, choose your line, and make sure you're on that to be?
Well, I think the key thing here is, first of all, just to recognize the problem, and this is a problem. This table is huge, and your horse is going to be completely open. And then you're going into a situation, 1, that Derek has already mentioned, that the corner's open and you have to be careful. 2, he didn't talk so much about the terrain, and the terrain here tends to push the rider and the horse downhill past the white flag. And so that is what's got to be in the rider's mind, that they have to control the outside shoulder as they come around into the B element here.
Well, if you're watching at home or you're here at the horse park on Saturday, you'll see some strategically placed brushes, shrubs, little things like that. Those weren't there by mistake. They're there for Derek and very strategically placed. Derek, when you're designing a course like this, your thoughts on placing things like that so riders really do have to make those decisions?
Well, I think in this case, we want to make sure that they have to ride a particular line and not be able to really sort of to be able to bow out, add lots of extra strides, but we're really asking the question, can they hold that line?
Here at the Land Rover Hollow at 14 ABC, we have some new obstacles that riders haven't seen here before at Rolex, in particular, this lovely keyhole behind us. Jimmy, when you're riding a keyhole, it always kind of presents a little bit of a challenge for riders, but is that more of a mental thing, do you think?
I think it's a mental thing for horse and rider because it's a little bit low. The horse has to completely trust you. And Derek, of course, knows all of that. So he's put it someplace where not only do they have to thread the needle at the keyhole, but they can't see the landing until they get here. And that means the horse has to completely trust the rider. If there's any break in the communication between horse and rider, we might see it here. Then, of course, there's a very, very difficult line to a corner in the bottom and a forward line to an oxer out. And again, I think that people are going to jump the corner and pat themselves on the back and have a whoopsie at the C element. I think that's the theme that we see emerging in this course. You got to take care of business all the way through.
There is an option here again at 14 ABC. Do you think we'll see riders who come through the keyhole and maybe struggle a little bit take that option, or will they try to autocorrect?
Oh, if they don't take the option once they have trouble here, I know their coach is going to wear his boot out kicking them. Yes, because you should. If you have a problem here, you should go to the easier elements and just kind of pick your way through and try and get going again.
Derek, another breathtaking course you designed. These jumps all so beautiful and well designed for these riders, but kind of coming all the way out here to the hollow, it can be a long day if you have trouble out here all by yourself, because this is about one of the furthest points on the course to walk home.
No, it is. It's actually it's right about the halfway point on this course, and I think at this point we've really sort of gotten into what I call the meat of this course, and they have had some things to do, and they still have more to get home.
Here at 16AB, the Smart Pack Equine offset brushes, it's going to be a little bit tricky. Riders will come down the hill at 15, and then there's a big wide turn here strategically placed with these cut brushes. Derek, talk about this complex.
Well, I think that the riders really have to make sure that they think about what they're doing here. I think that the speed and the balance that they come into 15 plays so much into this. They really have to know the line, the turn, because there is a line through here, but they can't miss the line, because otherwise I think that they're going to be going to the option here. And quite honestly, if they hit it right, it'll be great, but it's very easy to make a mistake.
Jim, we've talked about the terrain here time and time again, and for spectators, a lot of people just think about the beautiful grass and the bluegrass state, but here in this park, it plays such a crucial role in the outcome of these riders' weekends, and here specifically, talk about how the terrain plays in and what your recommendation is to riders.
Well, the first thing that I'm going to recommend to them is that they settle their horse a little bit before 15, because that's a very, very big downhill drop. It's a spread, and of course that makes the horse cover a lot of ground, but then immediately you have to gather again. We're just past the halfway point here, and that means the horses are not quite as responsive as they used to be. 5 or 6 minutes ago, the rider could tug on the reins, the horse would come back. Now the horse's blood is up, his adrenaline is up, and he's saying, let me at him, let me at him. Well, this is exactly the wrong place for that attitude, because the attitude here has to be, as Derek says, there's only one line through here. There's only one successful way to do this. And you're coming a little bit too fast, a little bit too out of balance, and a little bit too wrong to something that only has one right answer. That's a 4-star question there. This is going to cause a lot of trouble.
This will certainly be one complex you'll want to watch. And in a 4-star, a true 4-star, things keep coming at you, and that's certainly the case this weekend, thanks to Derek here in Kentucky. Certainly one of the most famous complexes here at the Rolex Kentucky 3-day event, the Head of the Lake. And Jimmy, walk us through why this complex is just so famous.
It's one of those things where you get a big crowd, and so that affects the horses and riders, which causes problems, which draws the crowd next year. Well, this will be the most watched complex on the course. This is a sea of people surrounding the water. The log into the water here behind us is big, but it's nothing these horses and riders haven't jumped before. A very straight line approach to a narrow jump. Again, that's something they have done before. And then when they turn back towards us behind the water to jump in again, there are several things going on. First of all, the rider has to know their horse because they have the option of which rails to jump in. Both of them work, but they'll work better for your horse than the other side. Well, which side is that? I don't know. You're supposed to know your horse by now. So that's a big factor. There is a turn there, which will slow them a little bit, and yet the speed of the approach is essential. You have to know your horse. There is the unusual element of jumping back into water. For some reason, horses are more reluctant to jump back again than they are to jump in the water. And I think it's because the riders say, oh, I just jumped into water a second ago. Yes, you did, but you rode like the dickens to get in. You better ride hard to get in. And then guess what? There is a bending line to a narrow jump followed on, I think, a very forward distance out to another narrow jump. This is not a 3-star. This is a 4-star complex.
Well, 18A-B are numbered separately from the rest of the water complex. There will be another ABC there for riders to navigate. And Derek, your thoughts on designing something like this complex? Obviously, the head of the lake so legendary, and why you chose to do what you did here this year.
Well, obviously, every year we try to change it here and to make it something that the spectators are going to really enjoy watching. And so it is the centerpiece of the course. And so you have to really, it takes time to think about this and to try to come up with something that is hopefully going to work out, not only for the spectators, but for the riders as well. And I think this year the riders certainly have to make some choices here. And at the same time, they've got to be on their game, especially at this point in the course.
All right, well, up until this point, riders have had a lot to navigate. There's a bit more left here before they'll see those finish flags. And Jimmy, how important is it at this point in the course to really know your horse? I mean, obviously the whole way around, but here, know how they're feeling, how they're doing after this course. Give them a pat. Tell them they've done a good job so you can carry on and get them home.
I think all of that's a good plan, but I would say this. You're going to know what time you'll get at the finish line when you come out of the head of the lake, because you don't have as much gas in the tank as you did 30 seconds ago. And when you gallop away from the head of the lake complex, the riders sometimes are thinking about the finish line, but your horse is different now, and so you might have to change your plan. If it's not quite as fit as you thought it was, that's something. If he's acting a little more green than you thought that he would, if he's suddenly getting out and saying, wow, this is really hard, you have to nurse a horse like that home. You can't just drop the reins and kick them from here. You have to ride with your head all of the way to the finish line.
All right, well, we'll give you a preview of those last few jumps and have some final thoughts for you. New stars will be born here at Rolex, and some hearts will certainly be broken on Cross Country Day, as the story always seems to go. There are a lot of newbies here and some seasoned professionals. Jimmy, your take on the field this year and the course overall?
Relatively inexperienced, extremely talented. Some of them are going to amaze us. Some of this we're going to feel very sorry for. There's a dandelion in the Kentucky Horse Park for every broken heart. And there are going to be some broken hearts. This is a hard course, and it's going to cause some people trouble.
Derek, you've designed here now for a few years, and each year it seems to get better and better, more exciting every time. How have you played into the terrain this year, and how has knowing the course now for a few years made an impact on the choices you've made?
Well, I think that having worked in the park now for a while, you certainly start to find terrain that you haven't found before, and you start finding lines that you haven't seen before. But the key is trying to put it all together so that you put together a course and not just a collection of jumps. And I think that hopefully, we've been able to do that this year, and I'm hoping that the riders have a good ride around on Saturday.
All right. Well, a huge thank you to all of our sponsors who make this event possible, as well as all the fantastic spectators who come out to enjoy it. I'm Frankie Thieriot for Rolex. A huge thank you as well going to Jim Wofford and Derek Grazia for joining us. Thank you for watching.